That's the lens that we have. And that's one of the things that we've been working on for years, you and I, isn't it? Working on helping people adjust their perception of what's going
So
on.
yeah, so you can come closer to perceiving reality. The idea in yoga, and again, that's we're talking about perceiving reality as it is.
Hmm.
The reality of this electromagnetic ocean in its form and figures, and in yoga, what we see with our senses is the illusion. You see the shape of all the molecules of my body, but you don't see the molecules. You don't see the cells. You don't see what's really in there. So our senses give us a limited perception of this world, which we think this is the real world.
Hmm.
But
And but that's the real challenge, right? Is that we are sensing machines. We're just made up of sensors.
yeah,
That's all we are. So the great
but
distraction is that we get completely enthralled with and taken with, sight, sound, touch, and because we're
yeah,
sensing machines, that's what we get. That's the path we get taken down. So it's
yeah,
important to learn what it is that you know
yeah.
we're trying to
And
reshape.
also, what we go through in the yogic study of how the mind works is that you see that the picture you're taking of the world with your eyes is one thing, and then it's cross referenced to everything you've seen in the past and anything similar, and then there's a projection, an overlay of what was similar in the past and what is now, and your mind comes up with this idea of what you're actually perceiving.
Hmm.
So it's a mental construct made of sensory information from the eyes, from the ears, from the sense of feeling, and if you have intuition thrown into it, there's the gut feelings, and then we are creating this reality. And what they're saying in science and quantum physics and neurology and everything is the world, what we are perceiving or we are experiencing, is all made up in our mind
Hmm.
from a limited amount of information that's coming from out there.
Yeah, we call those the filters. We
Mm-hmm.
have these filters that are essentially, you know, give us a perception, the perception that,
Yeah,
that all
colors,
that you just talked about
colors the
creates.
perception. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. So it's difficult to, step back from being entertained by all these sensors that are so present in our physical reality.
yeah.
Yeah.
Really grab the mind and pull it out to
Hmm.
experience what we think is the world out there, and then color it with our past experience and compare it with everything. And
And the mental constructs,
yeah,
the belief systems that get in the way.
everything overlaid into one thing that then we experience. This is our experience of life, which is might be very different from you and from me, and from the normal people who are out there following the media and believing whatever's being expressed on the media. And the media becomes the main sensory input.
Hmm.
We're out here in nature looking at trees and jungle and whatnot, that some people are walking along looking at their little screen all the time. That's as far as their senses go, and this is their reality.
Yeah.
And I have seen people walking down the street with their camera focused on the street, and they're looking at the street through the camera rather than looking at the reality of
Straight
what's
on.
right.
Virtual reality.
Yeah,
Virtual
that's
reality right in their hand.
yeah, got it. I
Yeah.
got this reality, and this is my new reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few situations where the phone gets taken away from people who are that addicted to their phone and they are lost.
Yeah,
So, speaking of being lost, I mean, that's essentially what we're trying to do is help people find their way back to their
human,
interior knowledge, right?
back to human being.
Being a human
Yeah,
as opposed to being defined by these constructs and these media networks, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So we bring it back. I mean, one of the starting points is to quiet the mind, and meditation is one of those techniques. And
yeah. meditation, and I mean the whole field of yoga, which I would say is the origin of introspection, meditation, looking within, and all this self-study. This is what goes back many thousands of years, and it has all the techniques of taking the mind and looking at what Patanjali calls in his Yoga Sutras the modifications of the mind. And every time you see something, instantly your mind is checking with what you have seen in the past, making a comparison, an analysis, a judgment, and a projection of is this a safe thing or not? Is this good or bad? Do I like it? Do I not like it? And all of this is happening in microseconds.
Instantly.
And then you get the impression of what you're seeing. But it's already gone through this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, the color and the beauty of the thing is actually lost in the process. And through the comparison of everything in your past that looks like this situation, and this is what he calls the modifications of the mind. And it's stopping us from seeing the beauty of here now, and going through that beauty into actually seeing the electromagnetic structure of everything, which we can see with our inner sense, the third eye, as it's called, Ajna Chakra in yoga. This is another perception that is very sophisticated and refined and elaborate, and it's amazing. And we use it when we have a dream or lucid dreaming or we have a vision. And all of these things are kind of throwing us out. Well, dreams have no sense and visions are for crazy people.
Yeah.
But the ancient people were cultivating this capacity of us to see on the inside. And with that, they went into this study of how do we work internally? What's this energy flowing through our nervous system? What are these nerve groups connected to energy vortexes that we call chakras, energy wheels? They could see this, you can feel this, and then with the yoga techniques, you learn to experience these things. You see them, you feel them, you hear them, all through internal experience, which in Western science is considered, well, that's a subjective experience, and science wants only objective. And now in quantum physics, they're saying, well, there's no such thing as objective, because the observer is always influencing what's happening. And this is the biggest stumbling block for physics and physicists to admit that the observer is changing the outcome of wherever the experiment is simply by observing it.
Yeah.
And in yoga, you applied that to your internal reality and what are we observing and how are we feeling and what are we seeing inside us. And you study yourself from the inside out, and you have techniques to change things. You can change the frequency of the energy. Sound. The sound of my voice, the sound of your voice is a frequency. The sound of your thinking is the same similar frequency, but inside your head, unexpressed. So at this level, you learn to control your thinking. What you're controlling is the frequencies and vibrations in your head, which is going through the hypothalamus into the pituitary and creating the chemistry in your brain, from sound of thinking to brain chemistry, which then goes down into the hormones of body chemistry, etc. All of this is, again, a sophisticated study of human being that has been known for thousands of years. This is sophisticated knowledge, and it didn't come through MRI scans and this other amazing machinery. I mean, it's cool, it's amazing,
but it's superficial.
It's superficial. It's a bit off track from.
Yeah, we get taken away by what is measurable with these machines and these sensors and all of that, right? And get caught up. But I mean, one thing that they can't deny is that electrical energy is generated with a thought. They have sensors, when they put sensors on us, where when you have a thought, it actually registers on a machine and it shows that it's there, right?
It shows you a sound wave, actually.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what the problem is with the religion of the day, which is science, is that it just measures the thought, it measures the electrical power of the thought, and it doesn't go any deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's just an observation, and
Yeah.
they
What do
don't
we do
know
with it?
they don't know where to go with it,
Yeah.
right? See,
Yeah.
this is it. That's why we need to go deeper, and because quieting the mind is the first thing that has to happen. It's very hard to do in this society because it's
Mm.
full of noise.
Yeah, full of noise, overstimulation of all the senses, and your brain and mind are trying to process all of this and
Hmm.
fit it into what does this have to do with you and your life? And there's most of it has nothing to do.
It has nothing
So
to
the
do,
brain is whirling around in these modifications, trying to sort things out.
which in the end is just a massive distraction,
Yeah,
right? Of finding our way to ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the distraction machine is, in fact, that would
phenomenal.
be the most sophisticated thing of our era, is the distraction
Yeah,
machine. It's so huge,
yeah.
right?
And everywhere
Multi-layered.
you go, you've got speakers and sound and music and video screens of this and football games and news and bad news, and it's just overstimulation
It's
of
just
all the
nuts.
senses.
Yeah. You think of the restaurants, popular restaurants now, they will literally have 25 televisions up with sometimes I've seen up to 12 different channels going,
Yeah,
right?
and
I
you
mean,
can't follow any of
you
it
can't
because
follow
there
any.
isn't a sound on any of
There's
them. They're
no
just all
sound,
images with no sound,
but there's movement.
but there's movement,
And
and
that
your eyes
movement,
are looking and being distracted again by all this movement.
yeah, all the movement grabs your attention. And then the next, sensory, overload that comes along is food and flavors and all of that. So now you're into the food, and
Yeah,
and then the social element because we're social beings. So there's all that going on, and all that other distraction is layered on top of it. I mean, it's just massive. How do you find your way back to a quiet mind?
yeah. How do you go back to a cave in the Himalayas where you're sitting just with yourself, observing your mind? You know, if you stop all the sensory input, and this is another aspect of yoga called pratyahara, where you're withdrawing
Withdrawing
from all
from the
this
senses.
sensual information and then just observing what's your mind doing now. Well, your mind has the memory of all these things you've been seeing, and it's still trying to process everything you saw today and yesterday, things that happened earlier in your life, bad experiences, traumas. All of this is still going on.
Hmm.
And you have to go through all of that to come to this resolution place of the mind actually calming down because you understand more of your life, what has happened to you, and what's going on.
Yeah. So one of the big challenges that we're up against, we live, I call it an ADHD society, right? So
Yeah, I agree.
the attention deficit disorder is actually,
Yeah.
yeah, in HD. I use the last HD for high definition.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's getting better all the time by their standards.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I've seen so much, and I mean, no, we all do it too at times, but people will literally watch violent movies before going to bed. So we talk about
Yeah,
quieting the mind. And what you just talked about is like all this stuff that's floating around in there and has to be eliminated. Those are the initial stages of getting into quieting the mind in meditation. We have to get through that, right?
yeah.
But people will watch a violent movie before going to bed, so that's just loading them up with all this stuff that has to
Bad,
be processed.
bad imagery,
Bad
negative
imagery.
imagery that needs to be processed, that creates hormonal reactions of fear and anxiety and stress while you're going to sleep.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane, but it's considered normal.
Yeah. And it's beyond not real. It's beyond not real because it's not even something you experience. It's just something that was thrown at you visually through a Hollywood movie, right?
Yeah, it's not part of your life in
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
But the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish that much between, especially if there's a emotional reaction
Mm-hmm.
to what you're seeing. The emotional reaction is very real and it's in you, and that needs to be processed.
And that's huge. The
Yeah.
idea that the mind doesn't really know whether it's really happening or whether it's just an idea. One of the things that we use in some of the workshops through the years is I get people to imagine taking a bite of an apple or taking a bite of a nice sweet mango. And usually, most of people in the room have digestive juices being injected into their mouth like they actually took a bite of that fruit.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. The mind doesn't know whether it's a memory, whether it's an idea, or whether it's really happening. It struggles with that.
Yeah.
So we're up against a huge challenge here.
Yeah. Consider 90% of our brain mind is at this subconscious level with all this information being fed into it all the time. So we're building up this massive library of negative stuff that doesn't apply to our lives necessarily. But then going back to our perception, we see something and then it triggers a connection, a memory. It compares what we're seeing to what we saw in a similar thing, which might come from one of those movies, and creating a judgment around it. This is good or this is bad, an emotional reaction going with that, a little prediction or possibility being projected into where is this leading to. All of this is going on all the time.
Mm.
So how do you quiet the mind after years of overstimulation of all this stuff?
And
It becomes almost an impossibility.
storing all that information. One of the things that's always, this struck me decades ago, observing any type of situation, traveling, you go to an event or even just sunsets and stuff. I can't believe how many people will look at the situation and say, oh, that's like in that movie, such and such, right?
Your comparison.
It's
thing,
like,
yeah.
what? Like,
Memory and comparison. Yeah.
can't you even be here enough to enjoy the
Yeah.
event without comparing it to a movie you saw years ago? You know? And I see that a lot. People still do that.
Yeah.
That's like in what? Yeah, that's like in comparing it to what's stored in the subconscious.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I look at people down on the beach here taking sunset pictures. Taking a picture of a sunset now so you can look at it tomorrow and remember what you saw instead of just being and watching the details of the sun, all the colors changing as it goes down. Every sunset is an amazing experience. Your camera captures a little snippet of it, which then reinforces your memory. Next time you're watching a sunset, you're seeing the memory as much as you're seeing the sunset. This is the modifications of the mind.
Yeah.
And we're all caught up in this.
Yeah.
Getting further and further away from being in the moment.
Yeah, the be here now concept is something that we really need to reinforce and bring back. I was watching someone taking a video of a sunset the other day. I mean, that's like, taking pictures of it is one thing. Taking a video of it is completely replacing the real experience by this virtual,
That's it. So we've got a virtual reality world.
Yeah. And now the goggles are coming along, and people are experiencing their realities with goggles on. I don't know. Have you observed people with goggles on doing these? It's like they're experiencing something.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've tried it. Like, okay, this is cool. Virtual reality.
Yeah.
But again, where's reality? We're recreating something to replace what's actually here. And the whole thing goes back to the Garden of Eden. We're plunked down into this beautiful garden nature with fruits falling out of the trees that don't have any price tag on them. But we build cities and we market the fruit and we put people in cement boxes, no longer in the jungle. We're getting so far away from nature, so far away from the reality of here and now. And this is normal. This is what we call progress.
Yeah.
What are we progressing towards? There is no final result here. It's just, let's keep progressing because we can do this now. We have amazing abilities, we have technology, we have cool engineers, and you know, but what for?
Well, the most, amazing factor for me is that most of these virtual realities are trying to recreate a natural one.
Yeah,
It,
a
it's
better scene
it's
of
it's
a
trying to,
better sunset, and yeah,
yeah. Well, but everything that we do, even look at robots, right? The robots are trying to make them walk. They're trying to make them talk. They're trying to make them do somersaults. We can already do all that, but we're trying
yeah.
to make a machine do it. So it's like everything that we do with our technology is to try to recreate some form of what we can do already or do naturally. So it's
It's the
a
same with the computer, a machine that will process and have better memory and faster processing capacity instead of developing our own mind, which takes us back to the ancient cultures, which
mm-hmm,
they refined the mind, understand how this instrument works with precision, what it's capable of doing, what it's capable of, how it's capable of directing energy towards healing, towards manifestation, towards creativity, all of these things, and developing your abilities. And in the case of the pharaohs in Egypt, for example, they are educated to be enlightened, to develop their mental powers in a benevolent way that from there you can rule the nation and make wise choices.
mm-hmm.
And this was the education of the elite. It wasn't necessarily for everybody. Not everybody's capable.
No.
But the reality of an education based on the mind and human being rather than finances, economics, technology, all of which is
And control.
control.
Yeah, I mean, it's the objective is just wrong. The framework is just faulty.
Yeah.
We really need to change that and develop those inner capacities. And I mean, one of the things that we've heard is that some of our DNA switches are actually switched off,
Yeah.
and that our capacity is reduced. I don't know, you know, what we can do to actually circumvent that and get back to our full
Mm,
capacity.
well, that's, I think, where yoga comes in because it's got the inner technology of how to work with the energy, how to reprogram your mind, how to reconfigure your DNA structure and turn on the parts that we're not using. Even the example I go back to is the fact that the average person breathes with 1/10 of their lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And in psychology, neurology, they say, well, we're only using 1/10
10% of
of our brain.
brain.
Well, is this a coincidence? Like, this is synchronistic. And in yoga, you learn to deepen your breath,
Mm-hmm.
not just to do a breathing exercise in your morning practice,
Mm-hmm.
but train yourself to breathe more deeply throughout the day. And as you do that, everything becomes more alive, your whole capacity, even your physiology, because you've increased your oxygen level. All of your cells are functioning
Mm-hmm.
at a full potential. Peak performance instead of, I'm not feeling so energetic today and I got aches and pains here. I mean, all of this changes simply by the act of breathing deeply.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing because we just talked about all this mental confusion.
Mm-hmm.
You try and breathe deep, and 1 minute later, you'll have forgotten.
Yeah.
You'll be thinking about something else. You'll be processing it. You'll be remembering something.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that, through teaching breathing and my work, I used to have an app called Relaxation One, which was a breathing app, but it would seem that everybody wanted to download an app that would do something for them. And what
Uh-huh.
happens with breathing is it really is an effort.
Yeah. It
You
doesn't.
actually consciously have to do this. You have to
Yeah.
intentionally do the practice, right? And that's
The
where
app will not breathe for you.
the app will breathe for you. And my app got downloaded onto over 10,000 phones. And still, people weren't doing anything because why? Because the app should do something for you and it can't make you breathe.
Yeah.
That's right. So one of the things I talk about a lot is the dedication to doing it. It's an effort. And that's where it falls down a lot of times because then people get taken away by some distraction, some other responsibility.
Yeah.
And
modifications of the mind come in.
hmm
Even as a yoga practitioner for 50 something years, it's taken me years to bring my breathing up to like a 50% all day long. And then doing the techniques of 108 rounds of deep breathing when I first wake up and all these things. But every time I'm not breathing, I get this shock wave from my body say, hey, hey,
hmm
oxygen levels getting too low here. And I
yeah,
can feel this. It's
right.
an experience and there's a feeling. And I enjoy. Everybody actually enjoys taking a deep breath. You know?
Yeah, it's a natural reaction.
It feels good.
hmm
And if you would remember to do it every time you get that impulse of a sigh. A sigh is a subconscious trigger. Hey, take a
hmm
deep breath. More oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. It relaxes everything at the cellular level.
hmm
Now, if you take 10 deep breaths instead of one, whoa,
Yeah.
you've changed something.
And so that's because the sigh is a signal. It's not the actual solution to more oxygen. It's the signal. The body's saying, I want more air. I want more oxygen.
Yeah.
And then, so now it's our responsibility to actually do it for 10 breaths or do it for 20 or do, and progressively get to
Yeah.
even more. But the sigh and those type of, body reactions are the signal. And
Mm.
so that signal we need to take to a deeper level. And that's what we do, right?
Yeah. Take it to a deeper level, understand it, and give a proper reaction
hmm
to receiving this signal.
Yeah, going beyond the message.
Yeah. And just to recap on the technological aspect of it, when I came to this island of Koh Phangan, it was it was just a couple of months after electricity came to the island. People were still living in nature. They were gathering coconuts, they were fishing. This was the lifestyle. Tourism hadn't really arrived yet.
Right.
So people were living in this simple, basic lifestyle on a paradise tropical island. And it was absolutely beautiful. And that's why I'm here. That's why I stayed.
hmm
And I've seen technology come, internet come. There were no cell phones either. There were no cell phone towers here.
Right. Yeah.
So all of that has come up from a primitive lifestyle of fishing, gathering coconuts. There were no roads on the island
There are
either,
no
just a
roads.
few
Yeah.
gravel roads and mud roads, and people were still using the water buffalo with a cart to haul things around.
Hope you've enjoyed that conversation between David and I. David of Pyramid Yoga and Marcus from Elemental Living. So we'll be doing a great series investigating all kinds of ways of finding our way back to self, finding our way out of this jungle of distraction. So looking forward to sharing more with you. Follow us on our YouTube channels at pyramidyoga.com and elementalliving.ca. See you soon.